I'm 77 years old, and I've kept 47 microcassette tapes hidden for 31 years. Recordings that document the last 7 months of 2 lives ending from the same disease, mine, and a creature that shouldn't exist. My name is Anthony Russo. I was an EMT for 20 years before pancreatic cancer gave me 6 to 8 months to live in June 1993. I was 47 years old, too young to die, too angry to die gracefully surrounded by people who'd watch me waste away while pretending there was hope. So I went to my cabin in the Colorado Rockies to die alone, to spare everyone the ugliness of watching cancer eat me from the inside out. But in July 1993, I met another dying being in those mountains, an adult male Bigfoot, maybe 50 years old in human equivalent, suffering from what my medical training told me was advanced terminal illness, possibly the same cancer killing me. For 7 months, we died together. 2 beings from different species, both facing the same enemy, both alone, both refusing to let the other face death without witness. I recorded everything, every symptom, every progression, every moment of pain and clarity, and the strange comfort we found in shared mortality. Those tapes are the only medical documentation of pancreatic cancer in a non-human primate species. But more than that, they're proof that dying doesn't have to be solitary, that even in death, connection matters. That 2 beings can face the void together and make it less terrifying through simple presence. I lived. Against all odds, against every medical prediction, my cancer went into remission in March 1994. I got 30 more years, 30 years I never expected. The creature didn't. He died in February 1994, with me holding his hand, both of us understanding what was happening, both of us refusing to let death be lonely. This is the story of how I learned to stop being angry about dying, and how a creature taught me that the only thing that matters at the end is that someone stays with you when the darkness comes. In my oncologist's office in Denver, Dr. Patricia Chen sitting across from me with that expression doctors get when the news is catastrophically bad. The biopsy confirms pancreatic adenocarcinoma, she said. Stage Y4. It's spread to your liver, lymph nodes. Anthony, I'm sorry. There's no viable treatment protocol. We can try palliative chemotherapy, but honestly it would give you maybe an extra month of feeling even worse than you already do. How long? I asked. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. 6 to 8 months. Maybe less. The tumor is aggressive. You'll start experiencing significant symptoms within weeks. Jaundice, pain, digestive failure, weight loss. I recommend getting your affairs in order, spending time with family, making peace with... I don't have family, I interrupted. Parents are dead. No siblings, never married, no kids. She paused. Friends then, people who care about you. I had friends, guys from the fire department where I'd worked as an EMT, neighbors, people who'd be devastated, who'd want to help, who'd visit me with sad eyes and casseroles and die watching me turn yellow and skeletal. No, I said, I'm not doing that. I bought a cabin in the Colorado Rockies 15 years earlier, a retirement dream that would never happen now. Isolated property, 2 hours from the nearest town, accessible only by a rough dirt road that became impassable in winter. It was July when I drove up there with my truck loaded with supplies, canned food, water, medical supplies I'd acquired through EMT contacts, morphine for when the pain became unbearable, and my microcassette recorder that I'd used for years to document medical calls. The cabin was small, 1 room with a wood stove, a loft bedroom, no electricity, no phone. A well for water, a generator for emergencies, perfect place to die without bothering anyone. I was angry, furiously angry. 47 years old, I'd spent 20 years as an EMT saving other people's lives, running toward emergencies while everyone else ran away. I'd pulled children from car wrecks, performed CPR on cardiac arrest patients, talked down suicidal teenagers, and my reward was dying at 47 from a cancer with a 5% 5-year survival rate. The unfairness of it consumed me. I'd lie awake at night in that cabin, listening to the wind through the pines, thinking about all the people I'd saved who would outlive me, all the experiences I'd never have, all the years stolen. I didn't want sympathy, didn't want people telling me to stay positive or fight harder, or consider alternative treatments. There was no fighting this, no positivity that would shrink tumors or stop metastasis. I just wanted to die without an audience, without forcing anyone to watch the ugly truth of what cancer does to a body. By late July, the symptoms were accelerating, jaundice turning my skin and eyes yellow, constant nausea, weight dropping. I'd lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks, pain in my abdomen that was becoming harder to manage even with medication. I'd wake up each morning surprised I was still alive, angry that I was still alive. Each day was just one more day of deterioration, one more day of my body betraying me. I started making voice memos, medical documentation really, recording symptoms, pain levels, medication effectiveness. Maybe someone would find the tapes after I died and learn something about pancreatic cancer progression. Maybe my death could contribute to medical knowledge even if my life hadn't amounted to much. The isolation was crushing, but also what I wanted. No one to pretend around, no one to reassure. Just me and the mountains and the cancer eating me alive. I was waiting to die. Just waiting. Getting weaker. Getting yellower. Getting closer to the end. And then, in early August, I met another being who was doing exactly the same thing. Waiting to die. Alone. Without anyone to witness or care. And somehow, impossibly, that changed everything. I was trying to chop firewood even though the exertion exhausted me. My medical training told me to rest, conserve energy. But anger drove me to do things anyway. To prove I wasn't dead yet. I was maybe 50 yards from the cabin, working at my woodpile when I felt it. That sensation EMTs develop. Awareness that you're being watched. That something is wrong. I turned slowly, hand instinctively reaching for the hatchet. And I saw it. At first, my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. A large shape in the tree line, maybe 30 feet away. Too tall to be a bear. Wrong proportions to be human. It stepped into clearer view, and I understood. Bigfoot. Had to be. 8 feet tall, covered in dark brown hair that looked matted and unkempt. Broad shoulders, long arms. Face that was unsettlingly human, but not quite. My first thought wasn't, this is impossible. My first thought with clinical EMT precision was, that creature is critically ill. Even from 30 feet away I could see the signs. The creature was emaciated, ribs visible even through the fur, posture hunched, suggesting abdominal pain. Movement slow and careful, the way terminal patients move when everything hurts. Yellow tint to the exposed skin around its eyes and mouth. Jaundice, same as mine. The creature was watching me with eyes that showed intelligence and something else. Recognition. It was looking at me the way I'd looked at myself in the mirror that morning, seeing another dying being. I stood frozen, hatchet in hand, my EMT brain cataloging symptoms automatically. Cachexia, obvious weight loss, probably 40-50 pounds below healthy weight. Jaundice indicating liver involvement, altered gait suggesting pain. Lethargy, terminal presentation, advanced stage illness. The creature wasn't threatening, wasn't aggressive. It was just there, watching, suffering, just like me. We stared at each other for maybe 3 minutes, neither of us moving. Just two dying beings acknowledging each other's existence. Then the creature made a sound. Low, pained. A vocalization that needed no translation. I hurt. My EMT training kicked in before I could think about how insane this was. I lowered the hatchet, raised one hand slowly. Universal gesture of non-threat. You're sick, I said aloud, even though I knew it probably couldn't understand English. You're dying. The creature's eyes met mine, and I swear, it nodded. Just slightly. Acknowledgement. I made a decision that went against everything I'd come to the mountains to do, against my plan to die alone without complicating anyone else's life. I walked slowly back to the cabin, got my medical kit, the one I'd brought for myself, with morphine and bandages and diagnostic tools, brought it back out, set it on the ground between us. I'm an EMT, I said. Paramedic, medical. I can't fix you, but maybe I can help with the pain. The creature watched me open the kit, saw the supplies, and somehow impossibly seemed to understand what I was offering. Medical care, comfort, acknowledgement that its suffering mattered. The creature took one step forward, then another. Slow, cautious, pain evident in every movement. When it was maybe 10 feet away, it lowered itself to sitting. A careful, agonizing movement that made me wince in sympathy. I knew that pain, felt it every time I moved. I approached carefully. I'm going to examine you. So just checking your symptoms, I'm not going to hurt you. I reached out slowly. The creature tensed but didn't pull away. I touched its abdomen gently, the way I'd palpate a patient. Felt the mass there, hard, large, consistent with pancreatic tumor with likely metastasis. The creature made a soft sound of pain. I withdrew my hand immediately. Same as me, I said quietly. You've got the same thing I have. Pancreatic cancer, probably. Spread to your liver. That's why you're yellow. That's why you're in pain. That's why you're up here alone instead of with your family. The creature looked at me with those intelligent eyes, made another sound. This one softer, almost like, yes, you understand. I pulled out my microcassette recorder, hit record. August 3rd, 1993. Encountered adult male Bigfoot, approximately 8 feet tall, estimated age 45-55, human equivalent. Presenting symptoms consistent with advanced pancreatic adenocarcinoma, cachexia, jaundice, abdominal mass palpable, obvious pain on movement, Creature appears to be in terminal stage, similar progression to my own disease. I looked at the creature. We're both dying, both came up here alone, but maybe we don't have to be alone anymore. The creature reached out one massive hand, touched my shoulder gently. The gesture was unmistakable. Agreement, understanding, relief at not being the only one. From that moment, we were companions in dying. Two beings from different species, facing the same enemy, refusing to face it alone anymore. If you're listening to this right now, if you believe that dying alone is the worst thing we can do to each other, subscribe to this channel. My doctor said these tapes would never matter to anyone. Help me prove him wrong. These stories deserve witness. Now, back to those mountains in 1993. The creature left after about an hour that first day, moved slowly back into the forest, every step obviously painful. I watched it go, part of me wondering if I'd hallucinated the whole encounter, but the next morning it was back, sitting near the tree line at dawn, watching the cabin. I made coffee, or tried to. My nausea was so bad I could only manage a few sips. Stepped outside and saw the creature still there. "You came back," I called out. The creature made a soft vocalization, not quite language, but definitely communication. I walked out to where it sat, bringing my medical kit and the recorder. "Mind if I check on you? See how you're doing today?" The creature gestured toward itself. Permission granted. I did a basic examination, checked the creature's eyes. Jaundice was worse. Palpated the abdomen again. The mass seemed larger, though that could have been my imagination. Listened to its chest with my stethoscope. Heartbeat irregular, suggesting the cancer was affecting multiple systems. All the while, I recorded observations on my microcassette. Day 52. The creature returned. Jaundice progression consistent with liver failure. Heart arrhythmia detected. Weight loss continuing. Estimate another 5 pounds since yesterday, though baseline unknown. Creature is ambulatory, but movement clearly painful. Parallel to my own symptoms, I'm down another pound, nausea worsening, pain requiring increased morphine. The creature watched me work with what I can only describe as clinical interest, like it understood I was documenting something important. When I finished, I made a decision, pulled out a morphine vial and syringe. "This will help with the pain," I said. "It's what I use. I can give you some. It won't cure you, but it'll make dying hurt less." I prepared a dose, smaller than I'd use for myself, accounting for unknown metabolism differences. Showed the creature the syringe. It held out its arm, understood what I was offering. I administered the injection carefully, watching for adverse reaction. The creature's eyes closed. After about 10 minutes, its posture relaxed. The tension that had been evident in every muscle eased. "Better?" I asked. The creature made a sound that was definitely affirmative. Looked at me with what I swear was gratitude. Over the next week, this became our routine. The creature would arrive each morning. I'd examine it, record observations, administer pain medication when needed. We'd sit together for an hour or two, neither of us able to eat much, both of us just existing in the presence of another being who understood. I started talking to it while I worked, narrating what I was doing, explaining my own symptoms, comparing them to what I observed in the creature. "Your cancer is moving faster than mine," I said one morning. "You're losing weight more quickly. The jaundice is accelerating, but you're handling pain better. Maybe your species has different pain tolerance, or maybe you've just been suffering longer and you're used to it." The creature listened to everything I said. I had no idea how much it understood, but it seemed to pay attention. Would make sounds in response sometimes. Would gesture, pointing to its abdomen when I mentioned pain, touching its throat when I talked about difficulty swallowing. We were communicating, not with words, but with the shared language of terminal illness, the understanding that comes from facing the same enemy. On day 60, something remarkable happened. I was recording my morning memo, describing my symptoms, when the creature reached out and took the recorder from my hand. I froze, unsure what it was doing. The creature examined the recorder carefully, pressed the record button, watching the tape spin, pressed stop, pressed play, listened to my voice coming back. Its eyes widened. It understood. This device captured and preserved sound. Then the creature did something that stunned me. It held the recorder close to its mouth and made a series of vocalizations, deliberately, intentionally, then pressed play. Its own sounds came back. The creature listened, then looked at me. The message was clear, my voice, my documentation. My story matters too. I took the recorder back with shaking hands. "You want to be documented," I said. "You want your dying recorded, same as mine." The creature nodded, actually nodded. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, we'll document both of us, both of our deaths, so someone knows we didn't die alone, so someone knows we mattered." That night I listened to the tapes I'd recorded so far, my clinical observations, the creature's vocalizations. the sound of two beings dying together in the mountains. I realized I'd come here to die angry and alone, to protect people from witnessing my decline, to spare myself the pity and helplessness of watchers. But this creature had found me, another terminal patient facing the same disease, equally alone, and somehow the shared dying was less terrible than dying alone would have been. The anger was starting to fade, not because I'd accepted my death. I was still furious about dying at 47, but because I wasn't the only one. Because this creature was facing the same unfairness, the same pain, the same terror of approaching void. And we were facing it together, making it bearable through presence, through witness, through the simple act of not letting the other suffer alone. The creature had given me a gift. It had turned my solitary death into a shared journey. And somehow, that made all the difference. By late August, our routine had evolved into something more than medical observation. The creature would arrive each morning, earlier now, sometimes before dawn. We'd sit together as the sun rose, neither of us eating much, both of us just existing in companionable silence. I'd started bringing out a blanket to sit on. The creature would lower itself carefully onto the ground nearby, always within arm's reach, like it needed the proximity, like I did. The morphine helped both of us. I'd self-administer, then give the creature a dose. We'd sit together in the chemical calm, pain reduced to manageable levels for a few hours. The creature would close its eyes, sometimes making soft sounds that weren't quite language, but communicated comfort, relief, gratitude. "We're medical companions," I said one morning, recording the observation. Day 70, both patients deteriorating on parallel timelines. The creature's weight loss continues, estimate 60 pounds below healthy weight now. My own weight is down 35 pounds since diagnosis. We're matching each other in decline. One afternoon in early September, the creature did something unexpected. It stood, laboriously, painfully, and gestured for me to follow. I hesitated. I was weak. Walking more than 100 yards exhausted me, but the creature was insistent. "You want to show me something?" I said. It nodded. I grabbed my walking stick and followed. We moved slowly, both of us shuffling like elderly patients. The creature led me about a quarter mile into the forest, to a clearing I'd never found before. In the center was a depression in the ground, like a large nest made of pine boughs and moss. The creature's resting place. Its deathbed, I realized. The creature gestured to it, then to me, then made a vocalization and pointed back toward my cabin. "You're showing me where you're dying," I said. "Like I showed you where I'm dying. We're sharing our death places." The creature nodded again, reached down and picked up something from the edge of the nest. A small carved piece of wood. Crude but deliberate. A figure of some kind. It handed it to me. A gift. An artifact from its life, given to someone who would witness its death. I accepted it with trembling hands. "Thank you," I whispered. "I'll keep this. I'll remember you." The creature touched my shoulder gently, then pointed at the sun, already lowering in the sky, and back toward my cabin. Time to return. Both of us were too weak for extended journeys. We walked back slowly, stopping 3 times for rest. By the time we reached my cabin, we were both exhausted, but something had changed. We'd shared sacred space, acknowledged each other's dying places, made the approaching death real and witnessed. After that day, gift-giving became part of our routine. Small things, meaningful things. I gave the creature my EMT badge. 20 years of service, 20 years of saving lives. "I want you to have this," I said. "So someone from my species was there at your death, so you weren't alone." The creature studied the badge, then carefully tucked it into the thick fur at its chest, keeping it close. The creature brought me stones from its nest area. Smooth river rocks, each one carefully selected. I lined them up on my cabin windowsill, markers of our time together, proof that this was real. One morning, the creature brought something extraordinary, a small bundle wrapped in bark. Inside were seeds, dozens of different seeds, carefully collected and preserved. I looked at the creature, confused. It pointed to the ground, made a planting gesture, then pointed to itself and shook its head, then pointed to me and nodded. "You won't live to see spring," I said, understanding. "But you think I might. You're giving me seeds to plant when you're gone, giving me a reason to survive into spring." The creature nodded, made a sound that was almost like encouragement, like it wanted me to survive, even if it couldn't. My eyes filled with tears. "I probably won't make it either," I said, "but I'll try. For you. I'll try to plant these in the spring." By October, we developed a sophisticated non-verbal communication system. The creature had learned what certain tools in my medical kit were for, could point to the morphine when it needed pain relief, could indicate nausea by touching its throat, could show me where pain was concentrated by placing my hand on specific areas. I'd learned its vocalizations. A low rumble meant pain increasing. A soft grunt meant comfortable or content. A higher pitch sound meant fear or distress. A rhythmic huffing was something like laughter or satisfaction. We couldn't have conversations, but we could communicate needs, symptoms, emotions. We could witness each other's suffering and offer comfort within our limited abilities. One afternoon, the creature pointed to my recorder, then made a long series of vocalizations, different tones, different rhythms. It was speaking, maybe it's language, maybe just sounds, but it was deliberate, intentional. I recorded everything. Day 103. The creature is vocalizing what appears to be communication. Cannot determine if this is language or simply expression, but it's clearly purposeful. Perhaps it's telling me something about its life. Perhaps it's saying goodbye. I'm documenting it regardless. The creature seemed satisfied when I played it back, like it had accomplished something important, like it had left a record of its existence beyond just the clinical observations of its dying. The moment I knew this was more than just medical companionship came on day 110, November the 1st. So I was having a particularly bad day. Pain breaking through the morphine, nausea so severe I couldn't keep down water, yellow as a lemon, weak as a child. I was sitting outside my cabin, crying, not from physical pain, from rage, from the unfairness, from the knowledge that I was 47 years old and dying of a disease that gave me no chance, no options, no hope. The creature found me like that, approached slowly, lowered itself to sitting beside me, and then it did something extraordinary. It wrapped one massive arm around my shoulders, pulled me against its side, let me cry against its fur while it made soft, comforting sounds. It was holding me, comforting me, the way you'd comfort a dying family member, the way you'd hold someone in their final days and promise them they wouldn't die alone. When I finally stopped crying, I looked up at the creature. Why are you doing this? You're dying too. You could have stayed with your own family wherever they are. Why waste your final months on me? The creature looked at me with those intelligent, suffering eyes, made a sound, then touched its chest, then touched mine, then clasped its hands together. The message was unmistakable. Same. We're the same. Dying together is better than dying alone. I understood then. The creature hadn't just found me. It had chosen me, had decided that dying in the presence of another being, even a different species, was preferable to dying isolated. That our shared suffering created a bond stronger than species difference. We were a family of 2 terminal patients, and we were going to see each other through to the end, whatever that looked like. In day 120, a sound I hadn't heard in months, a vehicle engine. I was too weak to walk far anymore, spending most of my time in the cabin or sitting just outside. The creature and I were together when we heard it. A truck laboring up the dirt road toward my property. Panic flooded through both of us. The creature tried to stand quickly, cried out in pain, collapsed back down. Too weak for rapid movement. Hide, I urged. Get back to the trees, now. The creature struggled to its feet, moved toward the tree line with agonizing slowness. I watched it disappear into the forest just as the truck came into view. My neighbor, Ray, a rancher who lived 5 miles down the valley. Good man, occasionally checked on the cabin during winter to make sure it was weatherproofed. He climbed out of his truck, saw me, and his face went white. Jesus Christ, Tony, what happened to you? I was skeletal by then, yellow, barely able to stand. I looked like a corpse. Cancer, I said simply. Pancreatic, terminal. I came up here to die. Ray insisted on helping me inside, getting me water, food I couldn't eat, talking about hospitals, treatments, hospice care. You can't die up here alone, he said. Let me take you to Denver, get you proper medical care, morphine pump, hospice nurses who can keep you comfortable. Family. I don't have family, I said. And I don't want hospice watching me die. I want to be here, alone. You're not thinking clearly. The cancer's affecting your judgment. I need you to leave, I said firmly. I appreciate the concern, Ray, but I made my choice. I'm dying here, on my terms. He argued for an hour, finally left with promises to return with medical supplies, with food, with help I didn't want. After his truck disappeared, the creature emerged from the trees, but it stayed distant, wary. I'd contaminated our space, brought the outside world to our dying sanctuary, introduced threat and interference. The creature didn't return the next morning, or the next. For 5 days I was alone again. The isolation I'd originally wanted now felt crushing. I'd gotten used to the creature's presence, used to not being the only dying being in the universe. Ray came back on day 126 with a pickup truck full of supplies, medical equipment, food, blankets, a generator, setting me up for a proper death. He stayed for hours, organizing things, checking on me, looking at me with pity that made me want to scream. After he left, I sat outside and waited, hoped the creature would come back, but it didn't. I recorded a memo with shaking hands. The creature has not returned. Ray's interference may have driven it away permanently. I am alone again. The anger is back, the fear, the knowledge that I'll die without witness, without connection, without the one being who understood what this was like. I considered walking to the creature's nest area, but was too weak, could barely make it to my woodpile anymore. The search would probably kill me. For the first time since diagnosis, I considered suicide. Quick, painless. On my terms instead of cancer's terms, not having to die alone after all, waiting in vain for a creature that was gone. On the morning of day 132, December 1st, I woke to a sound outside my cabin, dragged myself to the window. The creature was there, not in our usual spot, but right next to the cabin. It had approached closer than ever before, as if making a statement. The human visitors don't matter. Our bond matters more. I stumbled outside, nearly falling in my weakness. "You came back," I croaked. The creature made a soft sound, reached out and touched my face gently. Its eyes showed concern. I deteriorated significantly in those 6 days alone, lost more weight, gotten weaker, but the creature looked worse, much worse. The weaker part had revealed how fast its decline was accelerating. It was skeletal now, moving with extreme difficulty, the jaundice so severe it was turning green. "You're dying faster than me," I said, the clinical observation masking my heartbreak. "Maybe 2 more months, maybe less." The creature nodded, knew, understood, and had come back anyway. I brought out the morphine. We both needed it desperately. Administered doses to both of us, then sat together in the pale December sun. "I'm sorry about Ray," I said. "I didn't know he'd come. Didn't want him here. He brought the world to our dying place, made it less sacred." The creature made a sound. Not anger, something else. It pointed to me, then made a gesture outward, toward where Ray had been. Then pointed to itself and made the same gesture. "You're saying we both have people who care, people who'd want to be here?" The creature nodded, touched its chest, made a sound of sadness, then touched mine. "Same. You have family somewhere," I realized. "Family who don't know where you are, who'd want to be with you when you die. And you chose to be here instead, just like I chose to be here instead of with people who care about me." The creature confirmed this with a gesture. "Why?" I asked. "Why did we both choose to die alone when we had people?" The creature thought about this, then made a long series of gestures, pointing to its diseased abdomen, making an expression of pain, then pointing to me and making the same expression. Then it clasped its hands together and touched its heart. I understood. "You're saying watching someone you love die is worse than dying yourself. So you left your family to spare them, just like I left my friends to spare them." The creature nodded emphatically. "But then we found each other," I continued, "and dying together wasn't the same burden as dying with our own species, because we don't have history, don't have love complicated by grief. We just have shared understanding." The creature made an affirmative sound, then pulled me against its side again, held me. "We're idiots," I said, my voice breaking. "Both of us, trying to protect others by dying alone, not realizing that dying alone is the worst thing. That having anyone matters more than protecting people from grief." The creature huffed, almost like laughter, like, "Yes, we're idiots, but at least we're idiots together." From that day forward, I didn't care if Ray came back, didn't care if anyone found us. The creature and I had made our choice. We'd rather die witnessed than die safely alone. And that choice was more important than privacy or protection or pride. I'm sharing these recordings because someone needs to hear them. My hospice supervisor said no one would care about a dying man and a dying Bigfoot. But if you've made it this far, you care. Hit subscribe. Let's prove that compassion transcends species. Now, let's continue. December through early February. Our final 2 months together. The creature was declining rapidly now. I estimated weeks, not months. I was declining too, but slower. We documented everything, made peace with things we couldn't control, learned what dying could teach about living. Both of us were in agony despite morphine. The cancer was advancing, destroying our bodies from inside. One morning, the creature did something remarkable. It stood, agonizingly, and walked to the forest edge, returned with a specific type of bark. It gestured for me to chew it. I did. Within 20 minutes, the pain eased. Not gone, but significantly reduced. "What is this?" I asked, examining the bark. Later research would tell me willow bark, natural salicylic acid, aspirin's precursor. The creature had self-medicated, had knowledge of natural pain management that its species had developed over millennia, and it was sharing that knowledge with me. Over the following days, it showed me other remedies: leaves that reduced nausea, roots that helped with digestion, a type of fungus that created mild euphoria like natural morphine. "Your people have medical knowledge," I recorded. Sophisticated understanding of natural pharmacology. The creature is teaching me pain management techniques that indigenous peoples once knew, but that modern medicine has forgotten. But more than the practical knowledge, the creature was teaching me something else. Suffering can be witnessed and eased, even when it can't be cured. The creature couldn't save me, I couldn't save it, but we could make each other's dying less painful, and that mattered. That was medicine too. I was recording observations when I noticed the creature's behavior had changed. It was spending less time with me, more time in the forest. When it did visit, it seemed distracted, focused on something else. "You're preparing," I said one morning. "You're getting ready to die." The creature confirmed, made a gesture toward the forest, then toward the sky, then touched its chest. "You're saying goodbye to things, to places, to your life." The creature nodded. Over the next week, I watched it engage in what I can only describe as a farewell ritual. It would visit specific trees, touch them, make soft sounds, would sit in certain locations, a rock outcropping, a stream bend, our original meeting place, and just be there as if memorizing them. One afternoon, it brought me to a massive old pine tree, placed my hand on the bark, made a sound that communicated, "This matters. Remember this. This tree is important to you," I said. The creature confirmed. Spent an hour just sitting with its back against that tree, eyes closed, breathing slowly. I realized the creature was consciously preparing for death, not denying it, not fighting it, but acknowledging it and choosing how to approach it, saying goodbye while still conscious, still capable of movement. "You're teaching me something," I said into my recorder, "that there are stages to dying. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. I've been stuck in anger, but the creature has moved to acceptance. It's showing me that acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means being present for your own death, choosing how you leave." That night, I started my own farewell ritual, walked slowly around my cabin property, touching things that had mattered. The wood stove I'd installed myself, the well I'd dug, the chair where I'd sat through countless sunsets. I was learning from the creature. Death isn't something that happens to you. It's something you can approach consciously, with intention, with dignity. We were sitting together during a rare moment of reduced pain. The creature pointed to the sun, low on the horizon, then made a sweeping gesture from east to west. A day, then held up one finger. One day. Then it pointed to me and the creature together, made the same sweeping gesture but repeated it many times, many days, then touched its heart. "You're saying one day with me means more than many days alone," the creature confirmed, made an emphatic gesture. "Yes, exactly that. I thought about it. 5 months with this creature, 5 months out of a lifetime. Such a small fraction, but those 5 months had been more meaningful than years of my life before cancer. I spent 20 years as an EMT," I said, "saved maybe 100 lives. Routine emergencies, car accidents, cardiac arrests. I was good at my job, but I can't remember most of their faces. Can't tell you their names, it was volume, not depth." The creature listened. "But you, I'll remember you forever. Every detail, every moment we've shared. Not because it was longer, but because it mattered more." The creature touched my hand, made a sound that communicated, "Same, I will remember you." "We are proof that relationships aren't measured in years," I said into my recorder. "They're measured in significance. The creature and I have known each other for 5 months. But this is the most profound relationship of my life, because we've seen each other completely, witnessed each other's worst moments, chosen each other when both of us could have chosen solitude." The creature made an affirmative sound, then pointed to the setting sun again. "One day." Then held up both hands, all fingers extended. 10. Then pointed to itself and made a final gesture. "Done. Maybe 10 more days." My heart broke. "You think you have 10 days left?" The creature nodded. "Certain. Not afraid. Just acknowledging the timeline." "Then we make these 10 days count," I said. "Every hour, every moment. We don't waste time on anger or fear. We just be together, witness each other, make it mean something." The creature agreed. And for those final 10 days, that's exactly what we did. In early January, I was reviewing my tapes, listening to months of documentation, when something struck me. The creature had communicated sophisticated concepts without a single word, had taught me medical knowledge, had expressed emotions, had engaged in philosophical discussions about death and meaning and memory, all without language, all through gesture, vocalization, demonstration. "This challenges everything we think we know about intelligence," I recorded. "Western medicine, Western science assumes that abstract thought requires language, that consciousness requires verbal expression. But the creature proves that's wrong. It's conscious. It's self-aware. It understands its own mortality. It makes choices, expresses preferences, teaches complex information, all without human language. I thought about the hours I'd spent with the creature, how clearly it communicated despite the language barrier, how I'd understood its needs, its thoughts, its feelings without a single shared word. We've built our entire civilization on the assumption that language equals intelligence, I continued. That beings without language are less conscious, less valuable, less deserving of moral consideration. But the creature is proof that consciousness transcends language, that intelligence can exist in forms we don't recognize, that we've been wrong about what makes a being worthy of respect and care. The creature had been watching me make this recording. When I finished, it reached out and touched the recorder, made a sound, then pointed to itself. "You want to be on record," I said. "How you want humans to know that your species is intelligent, conscious, deserving of recognition." The creature confirmed, then made a long series of vocalizations, clearly purposeful, clearly communication in its own way. I recorded every sound. "This is evidence," I said, "not just of your existence but of your consciousness, your right to be acknowledged as a thinking, feeling being. I'm documenting this, and when I die, someone will find these tapes, and they'll have to reckon with what you are." The creature seemed satisfied with that, like it had achieved something important, like its existence would be witnessed beyond just me. Mid-January, day 170. The creature was failing rapidly now, could barely walk. Spent most of the day at its nest, occasionally dragging itself to my cabin for our morning routine. One morning, it didn't come. I knew what that meant. I forced myself to walk to its nest. Took 40 minutes for a quarter-mile journey, stopping every few yards to rest. But I made it. The creature was lying in its nest, barely moving, eyes open but glazed, dying. When it saw me, it made a soft sound. Relief, gratitude that I'd come. I lowered myself carefully to the ground beside the nest. "I'm here," I said. "I'm not leaving. You won't die alone." The creature's eyes focused on me, reached out one hand and gripped mine. The grip was weak, but the intention was clear. "Stay." "I'll stay," I promised. I sat with the creature for 6 hours that first day. When darkness came, I walked back to the cabin, got blankets and supplies, and returned. Slept on the ground beside its nest. For 3 days, I stayed, left only for brief trips to get water and morphine. Administered pain medication, kept the creature comfortable, talked to it constantly, even though I don't know how much it understood. "You gave me a gift," I said on the second day. "You took my angry, solitary dying and transformed it into something bearable. You showed me that connection matters more than pride, that being witnessed matters more than protecting your dignity, that dying with someone is better than dying alone, even when that someone is a different species." The creature's breathing was labored now, rattling, the sound I'd heard in hospice patients, the death rattle. "I know you're scared," I said, holding its hand. "I would be too, but you don't have to be alone. I'm here. I'll be here until the end, I promise." The creature squeezed my hand, held on. I recorded everything, every labored breath, every sound, every moment of its final passage, because the creature had asked to be documented, had wanted its death witnessed and recorded. But more than that, I stayed because it was the right thing to do, because no being should die alone, because presence is the greatest gift we can offer in the face of death. Day 173, January 18th, 1994. The creature's breathing changed, slower, more labored. I knew this was it. Hours, maybe, not days. I moved closer, held its hand with both of mine. "I'm here," I said. "Right here with you. You're not alone." The creature opened its eyes, not glazed anymore but clear, lucid. It looked at me with such intensity. It raised its other hand slowly, painfully, touched my face, then touched its own chest, then pressed our hands together, mine and its, over its heart. The message was unmistakable. You and me, connected, together in this. "Yes," I said, tears streaming down my face. "Together. You're not crossing alone. I'm with you as far as I can go." The creature made one final sound. Not pain, not fear. Something else. Something that sounded like peace, gratitude, completion. Then its breathing slowed. Slowed more. Stopped. I felt its heart stop beating under my hand. "Day 173, 5:12 a.m., I said into my recorder, my voice breaking. "The creature has died, peacefully, with witness, not alone." I sat with the body for 3 more hours, couldn't bring myself to leave, couldn't accept that this being who'd been my companion for 5 months was gone. Finally, I stood, my body screaming in pain, cancer eating me alive but still breathing, still alive. "I don't know why you died and I'm still here," I said to the creature's body. "I don't know why my cancer is slower, why I got more time, but I'm going to use it. I'm going to get these tapes to someone who can understand what they mean. I'm going to make sure your death mattered, that your life mattered, that we mattered. I covered the creature's body with pine boughs, a burial of sorts, then walked back to my cabin. For the first time in 8 months, I was alone again, but I wasn't angry anymore, wasn't bitter, was just grateful. Grateful for the time we'd had, grateful for the lessons learned, grateful for the gift of shared dying. The creature had taught me the ultimate wisdom. We're all making the same journey. Some of us take it alone, some of us take it together. But taking it together, even with a being from another species, even for just a few months, makes all the difference. After the creature died, I expected to follow quickly. Everything I knew about pancreatic cancer said I should have died months ago. But I kept breathing, kept waking up, kept deteriorating, but not dying. February turned to March. I was skeletal now, yellow, barely able to move, but still alive. Ray found me in late March, barely conscious, got me to a hospital in Denver. The doctors were shocked I'd survived this long. 8 months past diagnosis with stage IV pancreatic cancer. Then something impossible happened. My scans showed the tumors were shrinking. The cancer was in retreat. Spontaneous remission. It happens in less than 1% of pancreatic cancer cases. We don't understand it, my oncologist said. By all medical logic, you should be dead. But you're not, you're getting better. I spent 3 months in the hospital, slowly regaining weight, slowly recovering function. The cancer didn't disappear completely, but it went dormant, stopped advancing. By June 1994, I was home. Weak, changed, but alive. I knew I'd been given something impossible. A second chance. Time I shouldn't have. Years the creature didn't get. I thought about those months in the mountains constantly. About the creature who died while I lived. About the tapes I'd hidden before Ray found me. 40+ hours of documentation of 2 beings dying together. I never returned to the cabin. Couldn't bear to. Sold the property in 1995 without ever going back. But I kept the gifts. The carved wood figure. The EMT badge I'd given the creature that Ray had found and returned to me. The seeds the creature had given me. In spring 1995, I planted those seeds in my backyard in Denver. Most didn't germinate. Too old, too damaged. But 3 did. 3 plants from seeds a dying Bigfoot had given me, believing I might survive to plant them. I tended those plants like they were sacred, because they were. They were the creature's legacy, proof that it had believed in my survival even when I hadn't. In 1998, 4 years after the creature's death, I finally listened to all the tapes, 47 cassettes, hundreds of hours of medical documentation, philosophical reflections, and the sounds of 2 beings facing mortality together. One tape stopped me cold, the one from the creature's final hours. I'd recorded everything, even the death rattle, even the final breath. But at the end of that tape, there was something I didn't remember recording. My own voice, after the creature had died, speaking through tears. I promise I'll remember you. I promise your death meant something. I promise I won't waste the time you didn't get. I promise I'll live for both of us. I'd made that promise in grief, not thinking about whether I'd keep it. Now, 4 years later, still alive against all odds, I understood. The creature had given me more than companionship in dying. It had given me a reason to live. Day 173, January 18th, 1994, the creature's final morning. I woke at dawn, frost on my blanket, my body screaming in pain. The creature was still breathing, barely. Each breath a rattling struggle. I gave it morphine, the last dose I had, wanted the creature's death to be as painless as possible. Its eyes opened, looked at me with perfect clarity despite the failing body. "I'm here," I said again. "Not leaving. You're not alone." The creature tried to vocalize. Couldn't. Just looked at me with such intensity. The creature raised one hand slowly, touched my face, then placed my hand over its heart. Then it made one final gesture. It touched its chest, then touched mine, then pressed our hands together and held them toward the sky. I understood. We're connected. You and me. Our spirits or souls or whatever makes us who we are. Connected beyond death, beyond species, beyond body. I feel it too, I whispered. You're not just a creature I documented. You're family, the only being who ever really understood what dying feels like. The only one who sat with me without pity or fear, just presence. The creature's eyes showed understanding, acceptance, peace. It held my hand against its chest. I felt the heartbeat slowing, felt the breathing becoming more labored. At 5:12 a.m., the creature took its last breath, long and slow. Then stillness. The heartbeat under my palm stopped. I sat there, hand still on the creature's chest, crying. Not from grief, or not just grief, from gratitude, from the profound understanding that I'd witnessed something sacred, that I'd been chosen to accompany a being through its final passage. that I hadn't been alone in my dying, and neither had it. "Thank you," I said to the body. "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for staying. Thank you for teaching me that dying doesn't have to be done in anger. Thank you for showing me that the only thing that matters at the end is that someone stays with you when the darkness comes." I recorded my final medical observation. Day 173, 5:15 a.m. The creature has passed. Death was peaceful. Patient was not alone. All beings deserve this, to be witnessed in death, to have their passing acknowledged, to know that their life mattered to someone. I stayed with the body until mid-morning. Then I covered it with pine boughs and moss, creating a burial mound, marked it with stones so I could find it again if I survived. "I don't know if you have beliefs about afterlife," I said. "I don't know what happens next for either of us. But if there's anything after this, if consciousness continues in any form, I hope we meet again. I hope you're at peace. I hope you know that you mattered, that these 5 months mattered, that you changed everything for me." I walked back to my cabin, alone again, but not the same person who'd arrived angry and isolated in July. The creature had transformed me, had turned my bitter, solitary dying into a journey of connection and meaning, had shown me that the worst thing about death isn't the dying itself, it's the loneliness. And that loneliness can be overcome, even at the end, even between beings who share nothing but mortality. I never saw the creature again, but I carried it with me for the next 30 years. Carried the lessons learned, carried the gratitude, carried the promise I'd made to live for both of us. I'm 77 years old now. It's been 31 years since the creature died. 31 years I shouldn't have had. My cancer never fully left. It's back now, smaller, slower, but definitely back. My oncologist gives me maybe a year. At 77, I'm not angry about it anymore. I've had 30 years I never expected. 30 years to understand what the creature taught me. I never showed the tapes to scientists, never sought fame or validation for documenting a Bigfoot's death. The tapes have been hidden in a safe deposit box for 3 decades. But I'm dying again, for real this time. And I need to decide what happens to them. Here's what the creature taught me about dying, what I learned from 5 months of shared mortality with a being from another species. Pain is universal, but so is the possibility of comfort. The creature and I came from different worlds, different evolutionary paths, different everything, but we both hurt, we both needed relief, and we could provide that relief for each other. That's the foundation of all medicine, all caregiving, the recognition that suffering is universal and we can ease it for each other. Death has stages, and acceptance is the most important one. I spent months in anger, bitter that I was dying at 47. The creature showed me that acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means engaging consciously with your own death, choosing how you leave, saying goodbye while you still can. Meaning isn't measured in duration. 5 months with the creature meant more than 20 years as an EMT. Relationships aren't about length. They're about depth, significance, witness. The creature and I witnessed each other completely, in a way most people never experience in lifetimes of human relationships. Intelligence doesn't require language. The creature was conscious, self-aware, capable of abstract thought and emotional depth, all without human language. We've been wrong about what makes a being worthy of moral consideration. Consciousness comes in forms we don't recognize. The greatest gift is presence. The creature could have died alone. I could have died alone. We both chose to die, witnessed instead. And that presence, just being there, just staying when everything hurt, was the most profound gift either of us could offer. And finally, death is a journey we all take, but we don't have to take it alone. The creature taught me that dying with someone, anyone, even a different species, is better than dying isolated. That our shared humanity, or shared mortality, transcends all other differences. The creature wasn't magical, wasn't supernatural, just a dying being who found another dying being and chose connection over isolation. Its species likely has family structures, medical knowledge, awareness of mortality. The creature made a choice to die alone rather than burden its family with watching. The same choice I made. But then, we found each other, and dying together was less terrible than dying alone. The creature was intelligent, conscious, self-aware, capable of compassion, teaching, emotional depth. It deserves to be acknowledged as more than folklore, as a real being that lived, suffered, made choices, and died with dignity. I still have the carved figure, the seeds that grew into plants now thriving in my backyard, the EMT badge that the creature kept until its death, and I have the tapes, 47 cassettes documenting our 5 months together, medical observations, philosophical discussions, the sounds of 2 beings learning to die together. Next week, I'm donating the tapes to the Smithsonian with specific instructions. They can be studied by medical researchers, anthropologists, and ethicists. But the location must remain protected. The creature's species must be shielded from exploitation, Because the point isn't to prove Bigfoot exists. The point is to prove that dying doesn't have to be solitary. That connection at the end of life matters more than anything else, that we have a moral obligation to stay with the dying, to witness them, to refuse to let them face the void alone. If you take anything from this story, take this. Don't let people die alone. Ever. No matter how uncomfortable it makes you. No matter how helpless you feel. No matter how much they say they want to be alone. The creature and I both chose isolation to protect others from our dying. But finding each other saved us both from the worst kind of death, the death without witness. Here's what you need to do. First, if someone you love is dying, stay with them. Sit with them. Hold their hand. You don't need to say anything profound. You don't need to make it better. You just need to be there. Presence is everything. Second, if you're facing terminal illness, don't isolate yourself. I know the urge. I know you want to protect others from watching you decline, but dying alone is worse than burdening others with your death. Let people stay. Let them witness. Let them matter to you at the end. Third, recognize that consciousness and suffering exist in forms we don't expect. The creature was as aware, as feeling, as deserving of compassion as any human. We share this planet with beings we don't understand. Treat them with the same dignity you'd want for yourself. The creature died 31 years ago, but what it taught me lives on. In 1995, I became a hospice volunteer, spent 20 years sitting with dying patients, mostly people who had no family, no visitors, no one to stay with them. I'd sit by their beds for hours, hold their hands, tell them they weren't alone, because of the creature, because I knew what it meant to have someone stay when you're dying, because I'd promised to live for both of us, and that meant living in a way that honored what it taught me. Those tapes will revolutionize end-of-life care, not because they prove Bigfoot exists, but because they prove that dying is bearable when witnessed. That medical care at the end of life isn't about prolonging, it's about presence. Share this if you've ever sat with someone who was dying, if you've ever been the presence that mattered when everything else failed. Comment if you believe that consciousness exists in forms we don't recognize, that intelligence doesn't require language, that beings deserve moral consideration regardless of species. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about the spaces between human and everything else, about the connections that transcend species, about the lessons learned from beings we didn't know could teach us. And if you're out there, creature's family, wherever you are, I stayed with him. He didn't die alone. He died witnessed, comfortable, knowing he mattered. I kept my promise. I lived for both of us. I made his death mean something. Thank you for sharing your family member with me. Thank you for the being who taught me how to die without anger. Thank you for 30 years I used to honor what he taught me. I'm dying again now, for real this time, but I'm not afraid, because I know the creature was right. Death is just a journey, and I won't be taking it alone. Somewhere, somehow, I believe he's waiting. The being who showed me that even in death, connection transcends everything. I'll see you soon, friend, and this time, we'll take the journey together.